Welcome to the Bonsai Time Podcast, the monthly Everything Bonsai and More podcast. In today's episode, we will hear the recorded interview that your co-host Kevin had with April Grigsby of April Grigsby Ceramics. She's located in the Cleveland, Ohio area, where she has established herself as a new and up-and-coming bonsai potter and has recently gotten attention from many well-known bonsai professionals such as Bill Valvanis. She is known for her true-to-form Japanese traditional bonsai pottery style. In her short time as a bonsai potter, she was invited to sell her work at the 2021 National Bonsai Exhibit in Rochester, New York. As of this year, April will be joining us in the Columbus Bonsai Society's 50th annual show, and this will take place September 24th and September 25th of 2022. She sees herself as a lifetime student of bonsai, ceramics, and trees, and is always ready to learn new techniques and new approaches. Please enjoy her story and bonsai on.
Kiln, and it's a nice and straight pot, and he said, I'm looking forward to seeing it. He ended up buying it.
This was Bill Valvanis, right?
Bill Valvanis, yeah.
Wow.
So that was like, holy crap.
I was gonna say, that's amazing.
And then not too long afterwards, he did a Ezo spruce planting, forest in it,
right?
A write-up and everything, and talked about me. I sent him pictures,
right,
and everything. So that was like.
And that was in his magazine.
Yeah, it was in his blog.
Oh, the blog. Okay.
Yeah.
Still, that's
not
amazing.
in the magazine. Yeah,
but still, a blog gets a lot of attention.
Yeah, it was just.
Because he now
amazing.
went fully online with the magazine, and then with the blog being always online.
Yeah.
I look at that pretty frequent because he's got some amazing photos of just nature, obviously, and his trips and stuff to Japan. I just salivate over. I'm like, oh, I wish I could go.
I know. Have you been to his nursery?
I did when I went to
the national
show. It was my first time going to his nursery because of my second national.
This last one?
Yeah, because
I'd never been to him. We stopped by, or I stopped by.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah.
Met his family. It was really good stuff. Yeah, it's funny. I've heard so many stories just with him and Chase Rosade and stuff, and Dan Robinson now out in Washington. It was Ryan, my podcast associate and whatnot. We went out to Bremerton, Seattle area in January. Ryan went for New Year's for a week, and I went for 3 days and just studied with him a little bit, and it blew our minds. But the stories they all have, right?
Yeah.
So who are you?
Who am I? Well, I am April Grigsby.
Yeah.
You're recording, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
We're recording the whole time.
I am a Californian by birth. I was born in Southern California, but my parents ended up moving to the Midwest, and I did most of my growing up in Central Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Specifically, where you're at now? We're in western.
We're in northeastern Ohio now.
Okay.
It's a little bit south of Cleveland.
That's right.
So I grew up in Zanesville, Ohio, which is the home of the Y Bridge. Yeah. And then went to school at the Columbus College of Art and Design.
Right.
And that was in the early 80s. And
what did you study there?
I was a fine arts major.
Okay.
And ended up focusing on ceramics.
Gotcha.
So, and had a couple of really good instructors. My favorite instructor was from Japan, Bon Kajitani. I don't know what I think he may have passed. I don't think he's alive anymore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then there was another instructor there, Kurt Bensley, who works with porcelain, and he does Millefiori porcelain. So, and it's translucent, beautiful stuff. He's not there anymore either. I think he's University of Arkansas, maybe.
Gotcha.
But, so majored in ceramics, and then I moved to Coshocton, Ohio, and I worked as a pottery demonstrator.
Where's Coshocton? I've never heard of that town.
Yeah, it's let's see, it's north of Zanesville by a little bit.
I know
it's in that general vicinity.
Okay, the smaller areas that are kind of
north and east.
through.
Yeah, it's a very small town. It's on the Ohio Erie Canal, so there's a little town called Roscoe Village, and I worked on a kick wheel. I demonstrated pottery for I think it was about a year.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
When did you find yourself being inspired, or as far as like what led you to want to go to art school and fine art, and also find in ceramic?
Well, from a little child, I was always drawing.
Oh,
always drawing.
Nice.
So I just had to be an artist.
Sure.
I was either going to go to music school or I was going to go to art school, and made the decision that I had to be an artist.
Wow. What did your parents say?
They were 100% supportive of it.
Awesome.
I don't think that they were looking at my career as, what is she going to get a really good job? Is she going to be a doctor?
Right.
Like that. And sometimes I think I wish that maybe they would have looked at it more from a financial standpoint, because artists,
starve and sometimes starve more.
Yeah, we're kind of destined to be poor for the most part.
But the love and compassion of the art, right?
Yeah, I say I feel sorry for people who aren't creative. I don't really mean that, but I think there's something special when you're a creative person, because you look at the world around you in a different way.
100%. That natural instinct of like, why do I do things different, right?
Right. Yeah.
What are your things that keep you fresh? From studying in school to just going out and doing the step wheel. You said it was
a kick wheel.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And doing that, like what went from there?
Well, gee, let's see.
Because you were married at the time, right?
I was married.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got married right out of college.
Oh, cool.
To a former student. Yeah, we met each other in art school, and he ended up going on and becoming an art director. We ended up moving from Coshocton to Chicago, and I don't know if this is off point from the question, but lived in Chicago for about 12 and a half years. We didn't stay married.
Okay.
But anyway, when I was there, I worked as a picture framer and kind of a bigger gallery kind of thing. So I learned how to do some high-end, framing and matting, and remember even mounting a couple of kimonos.
Wow.
Big, having to stitch them into place and all of that. So that was kind of cool.
Well, that explains a lot of the intricacies, just with the palpational aspects.
I've always been 3D.
Yeah.
That's I like two-dimensional artwork, but there's just been something about three-dimensional artwork, and that's why I went into clay.
Does it feel more alive to you?
Uh-huh.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it does.
A life of its own embodying.
Yeah, like I have to have my fingers on something. Like I eventually started doing digital artwork, and I struggled with it because it wasn't tactile enough for me. And I don't mind getting dirt on my fingers. I'm happy when my hands are dirty.
Right. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
My husband's the opposite.
It balances out,
the
even and odd.
Exactly.
So you go to college, you moved here when you were a kid. How old were you when you moved here?
Let's see. We, so college, Ohio, then went to Chicago.
Yeah.
Then from Chicago went to Florida. And it was while I was in Chicago that I really took my first lesson with bonsai.
Oh, okay.
And that was with Ivan Waters.
Okay.
And then moved to Florida and was able to eventually get into tropical bonsai. So I joined a couple of clubs. I ended up doing the newsletter and was actually president for a little while.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, for the president for the Lighthouse Bonsai Society in Boca Raton.
Very cool.
So that was really where I started to learn about bonsai, tropical bonsai. But yeah, I was pretty active in bonsai for quite a while when I was down there. Went through a divorce, and it was like before I went through the divorce, I had started to make bonsai pots.
Oh, okay.
I had put clay down for quite a while.
Right.
Got back to it, and in a period of time, I don't know how I learned about it, but there was the second National Bonsai Pot Competition.
Oh, wow.
And I entered a couple of pots in that, and I got a second place.
Oh, wow. That's got to feel pretty good.
Really cool. Yeah, that was awesome.
That's amazing.
And then not too long after that, I just had to put clay down, and that's how I got into faux finishing and murals. I was doing Venetian plaster and just, all kinds of stuff.
All over the board.
And I did that for quite a while.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. I did not know any of that. You know, I've known you. We met 2 years ago at Rob Hoffman's place.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
his nursery. We were doing a. I think we had
He
a
was
workshop.
doing a workshop,
Yeah.
on a Saturday, and
And
he
you
invited me
yeah.
to bring a whole bunch of my
That's
pots
right.
down.
That's right. How did you meet Rob?
Through Ken Huth.
Okay.
With
that's right.
what's
Ken's Bonsai World.
Ken's Bonsai
Yeah.
World. Yeah.
Yeah. Him and his sitting in his big tub pot.
Yeah. And I met Ken because just being in the Cleveland area,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to think of, I might have gone down there with a couple of my girlfriends from the Cleveland Club.
Mel and Ann and them.
Val and
Or Val.
Ann.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Val. Sorry, Val.
Yeah.
I know your name. It's been a long day at work.
Right.
That's amazing. So, with the influence of bonsai, what led you to want to do bonsai? Like, as far as that approach,
Since I was a kid,
Yeah.
I think I was probably in the neighborhood of 12 years old, and I'm guessing that I might have seen my first bonsai trees at the Franklin Park Conservatory.
Okay.
I don't know for sure, but
Right.
that could very well be where I first got exposed to bonsai.
I've heard that quite a bit from a lot of people centered in Columbus. That was their first exposure.
Yeah.
When they're kids, like Ryan.
Oh, yeah,
That was
yeah.
his first one when he was 8. He's like, oh yeah, I saw it there. And then we got the bug.
I
No
mean,
cure.
if you're a creative person, how can you not be just
Right.
drawn in by
Right.
an amazing tree?
It's the ethereal plus the life of its own, like you're talking
Right.
about that 3D, but it's a living organism too.
Yep.
Yeah. And the energy it gives off is.
And I'm an animal person and
Yeah.
nature,
Yeah.
so it just seemed to.
Did you ever move back to California?
I ended up going to California in 2016. I was out there for a couple of years and stayed with my mom.
Okay.
And while I was out there, and leading up to that, I had fallen. I was carrying a load of supplies down from doing a job at a client's house, and I tripped on the last step, and I went down, and I was carrying a full bucket of product, and as I jerked my arm up, I tore my rotator cuff.
Eesh.
So I was out of commission,
Right.
no more faux finishing. That put an end to it. And a few months later, I was out in California.
Yeah.
What was interesting is the injury, I could work with clay because it was the over the head stuff that I could no longer do. But if anything, shoulder and below, I could do
It's
that.
like a physical therapy.
Thank God. Yeah, well, I guess in a way.
I mean, you feel stronger because of it?
I'm still weak in my
Okay.
right arm, but now that I've been wedging clay for a few years now, my arms are much stronger like they used to be.
Would you say you're full-time clay now?
Yeah.
Doing clay?
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I remember when we talked first, it was like, hey, yeah, cool. We both picked up on each other's vibes real quick. Because you had your display and I bought some pots from you.
Yeah.
I'm glad to say I have some of the first ones that
Yay!
were for sale still. And, just seeing your appreciation for the honesty that people were giving for feedback was really cool to see.
You know, if you're not open to feedback, I don't know how can anybody grow,
Especially as an artist, right?
Yeah, and I don't know, I think maybe some artists, there might be a stigma that goes along with artists that they can be a bit arrogant and not open
Right.
to feedback. But, if you're purposely making things for a utilitarian
Right.
object. Bonsai pots are meant to be used.
Right.
And so if you're making pots that don't fit the requirements,
Right.
then I think you're in trouble.
Does that also go with your philosophy of life too?
Yeah, I think so. When I graduated from college, it's kind of drilled into your head. Be new, be unique, be creative.
Oh, yeah. Be this.
And so there's just, for me anyway, because I don't consider myself a wildly creative person. I've got a lot of technical skill, and I think, kind of, that's why I enjoy bonsai so much, is that technically and craftsmanship, I really enjoy that.
Nice.
But I also, you also have to be able to look, you have to be able to design,
Right.
and proportions are really important. So bonsai pot making fits my personality. I don't have to be wildly creative. I love looking at, I love tradition, and I think it's really important to
Right.
keep tradition in mind.
For sure, yeah. And I always say to people starting out, it's like, learn the, I don't want to say rules, but learn the traditional sense of why this is this way,
Absolutely.
and then try to go on your own.
Once
with
you
your
learn
own
the
ideas.
rules, then you can break. You can learn to break
Exactly.
them. Yeah.
That rules thing is touchy for
You know, I think of Pablo Picasso. I mean, he
Right.
was a draftsman. He could draw.
Yeah.
He had to go through that before he could break the rules and do his own thing.
Definitely.
You know?
I think that's the criteria that should be in place, unless you're just like some abnormal savant of.
Well, and those people exist, and
Right.
you know, they're
the few,
amazing.
the proud.
Yeah. I don't know. I think maybe I can think of one person who makes bonsai pots. I think Roy Minorai. He must be a little bit of that, because he started out, and very quickly he was making pots that people absolutely loved.
Right. Yeah, I didn't get to meet him this last show, so I hope next show, Roy, I hope to meet you. But his pots
He's such a nice guy.
His pots are amazing.
Yeah,
So beautiful.
And the work that he's doing with his glazes is just phenomenal.
All the chemistry involved too, you know. And do you find within the community of bonsai pottery, that community, that it's together but it's also separate in my mind? Maybe not for you, but in regards to like, there's a lot of chemistry mixes that people make on their own. Do they freely share as much as they kind of maybe freely share with bonsai trees? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
You know, my experience is that I don't know a lot of people personally that make bonsai pots. In fact, really, besides people that I've just met casually, I work by myself.
Right.
So that idea of sharing, and I don't even get on Facebook that much,
right.
and the bonsai pot group.
Right.
I don't even comment or share on that so much either. I suppose part of it is the fact that I've really paid my dues. You know, the things that I've learned, maybe once in a while watching somebody in Japan make a pot, just gleaning the techniques. I don't, what I've learned from mixing glazes is just on my own and trial and error. And when I was in college, we learned how to mix glazes. I have a lot to learn when it comes to chemistry. So
very, very
I don't know.
convoluted.
I don't think the sharing is quite as intense as it is in bonsai. And I think that it probably I think it would be good. I know that Roy, for example, he shares
that's what made me think of that, because he's on Facebook. Oh yeah, here you go. But then trying to find the exact qualifications for each thing is where that puzzle piece fits together.
Yeah,
he can give you it, but it's in the finesse.
And every environment is different. I think even down to the fact that the difference in water can affect the way a glaze comes out. Now I mix 98%, whatever, of my glazes are all mixed. I have buckets that I find for recipes. I try them out. Sometimes I'll alter them. So it's all, formulas.
Have you ever ventured into going out and digging actual clay from
I've been thinking about that a lot.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What brought that up on?
Just because I'm in Ohio
and
there's a lot of clay in Ohio. Yeah.
This is true.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that outside with the root span of trees being so shallow.
Right? Yeah.
That'd be cool.
So even in our backyard, when my husband had to do some digging for drainage, it looked like could be some cool clay even just in our backyard. So I may have to.
Definitely worth a try.
I may just have to dig in.
Get the grog, the Ohio grog.
But I'm so busy with everything else that it takes time. You can have so many different projects. Right. It's kind of like squirrel.
Yeah.
What do I focus on?
Right.
And I've had a hard time. Just even evidenced by all the things that I've done as an artist and my interests, and I'm easily distracted.
You've been full-time 2 years now, or full-time a year now?
I would say full-time. We bought our house in late 2018, and then really started working on the studio and kind of got things set up, and then the pandemic hit, so no shows. So I was selling online, but I really feel like, honestly, the end of 2021 and the beginning of this year is really, things are starting to happen.
Yeah, because I heard, I think we talked, or maybe through Rob, or seen as small in Ohio. That's why we're doing the podcast to make it a little bigger.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, of course. I heard that you were going to nationals vending. I was like, I'm so happy.
That was huge.
That was so huge. Happy.
That was
like,
huge. And
how did that come about?
Well, that happened. It happened because of Young Choi.
Nice.
She and I got to be friends. So there's a little bit of a backstory with Young.
Oh yeah.
I told you that I had entered 2 pots at the second National Bonsai Pot Competition. That it was at the National Arboretum.
Yeah.
And the traditional pot that I entered got a 2nd place, and then there was one that I entered in the contemporary category. That pot never got sent back to me. I don't know why, but I was like, okay, well, that's just a donation.
Right.
Anyway, fast forward to 2015, Young used that pot because she was working at the National Arboretum. She used that pot and put some Iris cristata and did a nice little presentation in it.
Wow.
And after that show, I had gotten this random call, like out of the blue, from an old gentleman in Northern California. I saw your pot in the, then he said, do you have any more like that? And I'm like, how did you, and I didn't even know that, because I hadn't been working with clay, so I had no idea that there was a 3rd bonsai pot competition.
Yeah.
So then I researched it, and I wrote an email to Young and told her the story, and she wrote back and thanked me, and then she put it up on her blog, the email on her blog, and then I think we might have reached out to one another once or twice, and then when I was in California, I said, Young, I said, I'm getting back into clay. I have an opportunity. And so then from then on, we stayed in touch a little bit. And then when I went to the convention in 2018, she asked if I would bring some pots with me. And so she and another friend of hers, they bought a bunch of pots from me. She knew I was coming.
Yeah. Kind of like the back of the car, trunk sales. Gotcha.
Yeah.
You got to start small.
Right.
Yeah, because so then how was that feeling when did Young call you, or did Bill call you, or how were you notified?
Okay. So anyway, Young, Young had come to Columbus to do a workshop.
Right. That was a great workshop.
And we spent some time together, and she asked me if she was going to be going to Rochester to do workshops with Bill and one of the clubs up there. And she said, do you want me to say something to Bill, show him your pots? Wow. And I kind of was like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready. And then I think I reached out to her again, and I said, yes.
Yeah.
Say something to him.
For sure.
She did, and they said they'd like to invite me. I could have a table. I could have 1 or 2 tables. So I originally took 1 table, then I wrote back to them, and I said, could I have another table? I need another table. Yeah. So that was the beginning. And after the fact, I found out when I was talking to Diane in New Jersey. She said, we purposely put you next to Sarah Rayner.
Oh, wow. That's got to feel amazing. Say again?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How was that experience for you? I mean, was that your first big show?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was my first really big show. I didn't even I talked to Sarah for maybe 5 minutes.
I was so busy.
Yeah, and she was so busy. Yeah. It just, so I'd really like to get to know Sarah a little bit.
For sure.
So, I've thought about just calling her out of the blue and saying, Sarah.
I mean, artist to artist, right?
Right. And so that could be the beginning of getting to know a fellow bonsai potter.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot out there. Dale Choi. How did you meet?
I didn't know Dale Choi. Right. I knew his name.
Right.
And even from when I was living in Florida in the 90s, his name was all over the place.
Right.
I reached out to Dale because we had moved to Ohio. We're looking for a house, and I knew that I needed a kiln, and I was really used to putting my pots into a gas kiln, a reduction kiln, when I was in California. So I said, I've got to have a gas kiln. How am I going to do this? Because they can be expensive.
Right.
And I'd seen Dale put a post up, and it was a picture of his kiln. I said, I think that might be the kiln that I was thinking about that I could afford. So I ended up reaching out to him, and he said, mine's going to be for sale if he can wait a few months. And of course, I knew that he had He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer.
Right. That was
so
very sad to hear that.
Yeah. And so I had never met him until my husband and I drove out to his place, and he showed me what he had, and we negotiated a price, and I bought basically almost everything that he had.
Wow.
So his updraft gas kiln, I throw every day with the Brent wheel that I bought from him.
Right.
I still have my old Shimpo from college, so it's like 40 plus years old. That gives away my age.
It's patinaed wood.
Yeah, and it's still works great.
Awesome.
Yeah, and a bunch of other stuff. So
when I've you're the first potter I've talked with or interviewed for the podcast. With you working with other people's equipment, as I know people who take on trees from people that have passed otherwise, or there's this kind of a sense that they're still with them. Do you get that? Like maybe the spirit of him is influencing?
I'm thankful that I was able to take on another potter's equipment, and you feel like you're continuing the legacy. There were a few people that wanted my first pots that came out of Dale's kiln.
Oh, yeah.
And that never happened, probably because I had to start.
Right.
I took some pots to the local show, the Cleveland show, and maybe I'll talk to him again. But now that I'm not using Dale's kiln so much anymore, I am going to get back to it though.
Right. Well, then.
But this new kiln that I have is just.
I was going to say, because you have double the kiln, double the fun.
right. It's just it's a lot more work to fire in a gas kiln, and I was not having a whole lot of luck with it. It's an updraft kiln, a little bit harder to use. And
what's the difference from updraft to application to what you have now?
Well, I'm firing in an electric kiln now.
Okay.
So it's very dependable. When you're firing in an atmospheric kiln, clays and glazes do a lot more interesting things. But because of the ability to control firings and slow the climb of the temperature and slow the decline in the temperature, my glazes are just way better than they ever used to be.
Yeah.
I'll soak for an hour, so that gives the glazes chance to do their magic.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
It's interesting.
Have you ever considered doing like a wood-fired kiln at all in the future?
Yeah, I was hoping to get involved in a wood firing that's up in, I think it's in the Ravenna area.
Okay.
So north and east of here. And I think they're still doing firings in that kiln.
That'd be exciting to see what you get out of that.
Yeah, I participated in a soda firing once when I was out in California, and it was pretty special.
Oh yeah, I mean,
the results were really
textures, everything. It's like a fine food. You never forget it.
I know. I still have one pot from that.
Keep it always.
I'm not going to get rid of it.
Right.
No.
That was one thing I've been told.
They're kind of like kids. Sometimes I have a hard time getting rid of a pot, selling it.
Yeah, I mean, you put your physical self into it, It's like a tree. It's like, I was told by a mentor of mine in Portland, from Bonsai Society of Portland. He was the past president years back. He's told me time and time again, he's like, keep your first Yamadori and keep your first one you style. And then keep your first one that you style by yourself. And, the list goes on, because you always have your first, right?
Right, absolutely.
Just like your pots. Like, I appreciate that, because you're actually taking the time to almost see where your experience has taken you through your pots, right?
It's really important to see your progress, to see your history.
How would you classify your progress now? Like, what do you see that yourself has changed or gotten better or influenced, or the list goes on with something you can say.
Well,
is there anything in particular you could think of?
I would say that in the beginning of really focusing full time on bonsai pots, there's a lot of experimentation,
right?
And kind of learning about what it is that I do the best. I mean, I've been able to make a well constructed bonsai pot, but I feel like I've always kind of I haven't really focused on what it is that I like, and now it's like okay to do what I like because people like it, and I'm really influenced by traditional pots.
Awesome.
I felt like in the beginning, and I was suffering a little bit of that from that. I've got to be new and different,
Right.
and I
Out
think
of the box.
I think out of like the the kind of the heavy load that you're carrying when you're first out of college, and that emphasis on new and different and creative. It's okay for me to be inspired by tradition. And I enjoy that, and I'm just going with it. And I've been able to slow down a little bit. Not that I, banged out pots, but it's okay for me to slow down. Now I just have to, what I can get for a pot has to kind of come up to the point of how much time I'm taking to make these pots.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's hard.
Yeah.
That's really hard as an artist. I think some people are just really gutsy and they can put a price on something and, they're good with it. But it's hard for me because I think I look at it, well, I couldn't afford to pay that much.
Right.
I dealt with that when I was a faux finish artist and muralist. These people are spending thousands of dollars sometimes to do a whole house. I'm like, I don't have that kind of money.
Right. I'll do the application though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept too, in the idea that that's, I want to say it's like an argument with yourself, but in that duality, right?
Oh, it's definitely an argument with yourself because you need to survive.
Exactly.
I'm doing this. If I didn't have to make money, then if I was, independently wealthy or, whatever, I would be doing it anyway. I'm not doing it for the money.
Of course.
I'm doing it because I love to do this.
Yeah.
But it's really nice to have the reward of people paying, handing you money and you give them, something that you've created.
Well, I say, and the fact is too that, like you said, you put your blood, sweat, and tears physically in it, in the time you spent, As far as, I ask this question a lot too, like, what would you say to a new potter? Or in this case, a potter getting experience, I picked your brain a little bit because I'm going to take classes just for fun, just to get a resonance of like, oh, this is what it's like to have clay in hand, You're not finger painting, but you're, you know what I mean?
No, it's great. I would say, and I've kind of just came to this conclusion because now that I've really been working with clay full time for a little while now, I would say, just get to know the clay. Make as many pots as you can. And the other thing that's really, really important is not only to look, but try to get your hands and touch and feel some really good pots. If you want to make bonsai pots, then you've got to feed yourself with good quality.
Do you buy, well, I'm sure you have certain artists that you like, right? Mm-hmm. Do you buy pots from them to learn from their pots and things?
I haven't done that, but I certainly look a lot on the internet. And any chance I get, like when I was at the MAB show in New Jersey, Dave Paris, he walked by and he just like shoved a couple of pots under my nose and he said, "Take a look at these." And I was like, oh my gosh, they were just little pots, but they were just so well crafted and finished. And those are the kinds of things that you need to touch it. You need to feel it. You need to familiarize yourself with clay, and don't expect to make anything great for a while.
Right. Trial and error.
Yeah. I think that there's a tendency to either overwork the clay when you're first starting out, or to just throw stuff together and go for volume. And there's like a happy medium there. I think it's really important when you're making the pot, even like now that I'm spending a lot more time detailing pots than I've ever done, there's a certain amount of that handwork that needs to remain.
Right.
You don't want it to look like it came out of a mold.
Right, because it is
like,
production,
it was
right?
a slip cast or whatever. The maker's hand still needs to be there, but you don't want it to be overworked.
Right.
There's a fine line. I don't know. And then you only learn that just by making and doing.
And by doing, has it led you to have a preferred shape or a favorite shape to make, or a preferred pot style?
Well, I think a few things have emerged since the national convention and where I am now. I like making I like making like not cut corner pots, but like I do a lot of throwing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll take I'll throw a circle without a bottom, and then after that dries enough to handle it, that comes off and that's shaped into either an oval or a rectangle.
Mm.
The most recent pots that I've made were rounded rectangles, but they had like a little indented corner in them. So they really are kind of like a rectangle moko.
That's cool.
I really had a great time with that. And then putting feet on that match the contour of the pot. So anything that just takes a little bit more time, a little bit more handwork, a little bit more technique, I think I really like that. Cloud feet, so the rectangles, and I should have shown you that before.
Oh, we still got time.
Okay. I like doing cloud feet now.
Right.
They take a lot of time, but they're just special.
Right? Yeah. That's really cool.
And I don't care if they're reminiscent of Japanese pots,
right.
But they're not a purposeful copy.
Exactly. It's your own influence,
to that.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's a homage, would you say, right?
Right, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a couple of people come up to me at the MABS convention and said, "Are you an importer?" I was like,
"Wow."
Yeah.
It's like, well, let me take a
and that's where it started to rise inside of me, like, what's going on here? What's going on? Like
that confidence of like, people know who I am.
Yeah, I'm still not 100% used to it, and I hope that I never do get used to it.
Right. And knowing you for 2 years, we're in some boat where we just enjoy what we're doing and put our head to the grindstone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. Head down, you're just working, and then once in a while you get out and you're with people and you get some good feedback, you get some honest criticism.
Yeah.
I want all of it.
Just remember with Oregon to use biodegradable.
Yeah.
I mean, are you doing more pots to make to sell, or are you doing more specific orders for people as far as
I have a backlog of commissions, not a ton, but still, you know what, it's starting to add up, and I think I'm gonna go because as soon as I get done with the show in Chicago, I'm doing the Midwest Bonsai Show in August. So that all summer long, that's what I'm working on.
That's coming up in
it's August 18th, 19th, and 20th, I think, are the dates.
Wow.
So I've got another solid month of working, and then I'm going to be glazing and firing and doing all of that.
Man.
But that's so exciting. It's just
really is.
so exciting. I've done some good shows recently, and it just happened all of a sudden.
Well, it was time, Like Rob and I talked, and him and I both like it's gonna take off when it does. It's gonna be just driving down the street, no looking back.
It's exciting, and a shout out to Rob, because he's just the nicest guy. He's so knowledgeable. He loves pots, and he's been really, really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And to the whole community, and that's how Rob and I met. I told you and whatnot. Through the Mark Fields Association with Rob. I was like, hey, do you know anybody? Kind of deal. I was helping Mark at his yard when I first moved to town. Went up to Indiana for a conference with my wife.
Okay.
And I was like, cold called him like, hey, I met you at Nationals. I don't want to sit in the car for 6 hours. Can I come pull weeds for your trees?
Wow,
Sure, come on over.
Cool.
Then I just asked him, he's like, gave me Rob's number, and we were chatting and talking, and he had that idea for the nursery, right? And then I'm like, oh, what do you want to do with it? And his whole encompassing, like, I want to create a bigger scene for the community. With your intention of how you do pots, do you want to see more potters from Ohio? I mean, because I know there's Iker, there's Georgie.
Volcano.
Yeah, Volcano, yeah.
However you pronounce it.
Like David Georgie, I think.
Dave Georgie up in the Cleveland area.
Those are there, but what do you want to see more as yourself doing this now full-time for Ohio, being specific as your home base?
Wow, that's an interesting question, because, competition is always really healthy.
Definitely, because if not, you're not growing, right?
Yeah. And I think it is healthy.
Yeah.
The more the merrier.
Right. Yeah.
I think that I would like to see anybody that is going to venture into bonsai pot making to pay your dues.
How do you do that?
Really, just pay your dues. Work with clay. Get to know the clay, and look. Before you came, earlier today, I was pulling out some books that were kind of important to me throughout my career. And one of them is here, hang on. It's ceramic form, and this is all, it's all creative.
Pottery Lane. This is a beautiful book.
Yeah, it's a great book, and I had gotten that book out just recently. Wow. One of the pottery stores that I buy supplies from, they're actually in New York. So when I go to visit my daughter in New York, we drive up to Kingston, New York, and I get stuff there. They had a picture put up of a ceramic artist's work, and they said, if you can identify this, send us an email, and then we'll put you in a pool for winning gift certificates. I was like, I know who that is. I just couldn't think of the name. Yeah. I hadn't seen his work in a long time. So I pulled this book out. I scanned the artist list, and that's it. And I wrote to him, and of course it was. I mean, there was no doubt.
Right.
But then I looked at this book, and I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to look at this book some more. And it's all, nothing in there is bonsai pots.
No, but
it's amazing. Textures and form, and it's just amazing. So I'm going to spend some time in the evenings and go through it and be inspired again.
That's what's awesome too, is that you never stop studying.
Yeah,
you keep pushing yourself, and as you said, pay your dues. Like, just keep connecting with everything.
Look, work with clay. Look at good bonsai pots and try to emulate what it is that you like.
Right.
I think it's better to, instead of trying to be unique and individual, that's where you pay your dues. You learn traditional shape.
Yeah, form and setting.
Yeah.
I appreciate you saying that, because, as Americans, as we are, my wife being Japanese, it's a big talk we have. And I know we've discussed this idea that, sometimes we feel that we're American, we almost feel obligated to have this, I need to do something completely different because it's in my culture. It's like, well, no, you can take a step back and, just reel it in.
Yep. It's tradition for somebody to want to learn ceramics. You go and you apprentice, and you live in their house, and you do their laundry, and you help cook, and you do all those kinds of things. And then after you've gotten to know the family, then they start you out, maybe reconstituting clay and, doing all the grunt stuff. And then at some point you've moved on to actually maybe producing something important. So I think that, I don't know, we've lost touch with that. It's not, it's an instantaneous gratification.
Right.
And true gratification, I don't think it should come that fast.
No, it takes time,
It does.
It's like learning to walk.
That's right. Yeah, you're going to learn that with your little one.
She's now 3 weeks and 2-3 days old. It's crazy. Just the time she's grown now. Like, wow, Juniper, you're getting big.
Yeah, it's amazing how fast.
If you had the opportunity to study in Japan, would you take it?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. If I could feel comfortable with leaving for a little while.
Right.
I think that would be great. My husband and I were hoping, we both love Japan. We have for many, many years. And so hopefully next year we can put together a trip.
Any specific areas you're going to go to Tokonoma?
Tokonoma, yeah.
And then all around everywhere else for food and everything too?
Yeah, that's probably where we're going to spend most of our time. Nice. And, I'm just starting to do a little bit of research.
No, you have a blast. It's an amazing country.
Yeah.
Anywhere you go, it's just...
I can't wait to go.
It'll happen too, because you have the drive now. And what do you think, in this thought process of you possibly going, what do you think you take out of it just right now? Because I would love to ask you that question when you come back.
Oh, to go to Japan. Well, I want to see the inside of studios. I want to see the inside of the workshops where these wonderful potters make beautiful bonsai pots, and just watch them work and just get to know them just a little bit, and just the beauty of the countryside. I want to touch and feel the clay that they're using.
Definitely.
I want to see what it's like, yeah.
That'd be cool. And
I'd love to be able to, visit a bonsai nursery.
Oh, there's quite a few.
Yeah. Yeah.
Throw a rock, maybe hit 4 or 5.
Right. And then food,
Oh yeah. And that, it all transcends into one thing. With your studies as you're going to now and you keep studying and everything, what are some of the biggest takeaways from, I don't want to say failures, but the ones that didn't work out, the pots that didn't work? What have you gotten from those?
Don't rush. You know, there are times when I know that maybe I've tried to join two pieces of clay that are not the same moisture content, and I've had a failure here and there. I would say my success rate has really increased quite a bit, so that feels good. I know that I'm, doing the right thing. But there have been a couple of times where I've I probably shouldn't have put these two pieces together, or I moved a piece of clay that was a little bit too dry.
Gotcha. What keeps you going?
I love it. I just love what I'm doing. That's what keeps me going.
That resonates with your energy that you give off just for the pots and how you talk about it. I mean, I've known you like a while, right?
Yeah.
But there's a reason what's happening now is happening to you, because you resonate all this positiveness with your pots and just the love
it's
for
nice.
it,
It's fun to hear you say that, because sometimes I think, well, what, I guess I do question, well, what does keep me going besides the fact that I feel like I'm in my element. Most of the time I look forward to getting down into my studio. Sometimes I come down here and I have no idea what I'm going to make. I'm not mass producing. I'm not making the same shape over and over again. But if you look behind you, I did a whole series of those because I had somebody in England that wants me to make a pot for a customer's juniper, small juniper.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, I've got to explore this form, because they saw something that they liked on Instagram, but they wanted to bring it up a little bit and elongate the form a little bit. For some reason, I don't know why, but I felt like I was struggling trying to get that right, plus have it be the right size.
Right.
So, as you know, clay shrinks. So you've got to figure out what your size is going to be when you start, because it's going to shrink between 12 and 13%.
I did not realize it was that much shrinkage.
Yeah.
Now, does it depend on the clay you're using, or just overall?
Yeah, most of the clays that I'm using are anywhere from 12.5 to 13% shrinkage.
So then how much more do you add on?
Well, like my formula is, if it needs to be 10 inches, when it's done, I take 10 divided by 88%. Which gives me the 12% shrinkage. Right. I had to call my daughter to fix.
I was going to say, how'd you figure that out? I was like, that's quite a...
Yeah.
Wow, that's absolute. I was like, wow, that's...
I am not a math person. But so whatever the shrinkage is with your clay, and that can vary a little bit. And I think most people understand that this is not an exact science. So, if the clay is a little bit wetter when I throw it, then it's going to shrink a little bit more.
Is it seasonally dependent too? Because we're in your basement right now. It's perfect because it was hot. It wasn't as hot as it was last week or yesterday.
But I'm actually sometimes chilly down here, which is kind of neat. Right. I was going to say it's kind of cool.
No pun intended.
Right.
But seasonally, are you doing much clay work here in wintertime? Because, you get a lot of snow up here, right?
Oh, yeah. I work all winter long. And winter's kind of nice. It's a little bit cold, but I keep a little submersible aquarium heater in my water buckets. Okay. Keeps the water nice and warm. Right. So that's great. As long as my hands are warm, I can work. Right. And I have a little oil-filled heater that I plug in, and it's pretty comfortable. It's pretty constant.
Do you have a favorite season that you like to work in? Or that you take... it's a two-part question. I like to work in and then also take more inspiration from.
Oh, wow. Honestly, I think I'd like to be in the studio in the wintertime because it's dry and pots dry a lot faster.
Makes sense.
And so I can produce... I really feel like I can produce more quickly. It's humid now, so my pots don't dry as fast. Right. I don't have to keep as close of an eye on them. In the wintertime, I have to really... Because if things aren't covered well, they can dry out a little bit more on one side, and then that
warp too and everything.
Yeah, it's most noticeable when I'm throwing a pot and it's coming off the wheel and it's going to get shaped into an oval or a rounded rectangle or whatever. If that pot dries out unevenly, it'll feel harder in one area. And so it's. You have to be. I do have to be careful.
That's good to know. It makes sense in the way it works with the temperature and everything else. But hearing it from the person making, I was like, oh, you do have struggles. I'm still learning, but I've also learned that if I can get my
two pieces, so I have to, if I'm going to do a joined pot, I'll throw and then I'll roll out a slab at the same time. As soon as I can touch the clay, I'm bringing the two pieces together and I'm covering them up, and I can let them sit there for a little while so that they equalize moisture.
With the insulation and everything.
Yeah, because what'll happen is if the slab is a little bit wetter than the walls, the slab's going to shrink more, and then it's going to cause the walls to do this, and then you'll get a little bit of a warp. So you know who's like Sarah Rayner? None of her pots are warped. I haven't seen a warped pot.
I have a few.
They're nice and flat.
I have a few different generations of Sarah Rayners. I've gotten paid a decent price for them, you know,
I know,
on the auctions and whatnot. But I was like, I have to have this, and it seems like each generation has been a new form of life in the pots, as far as what she's given and inspiration. Like we're talking about as your inspiration for seasonality, you know.
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself having that as well in that experience of like each pot you make is a different form of life, or
well, you know? Yeah, I mean, I guess every time I make a pot, especially one that I've spent a lot of time on, and I'll stand back, like the one that I was just showing you,
that
the
thing,
rectangle.
Like, wow.
and I'll look at it and I'll go, okay.
That catches your eye. So
so now it just has to get through the drying and the firing.
Right.
Slabs are really, unless they have a nice substantial rim on them, they'll tend to want to warp.
Right.
They'll either go out. Typically, they go in, and I know there's a way to get that. So there, I feel like a beginner, you know, when it comes to making these just straight, you know, slab pots that don't have a substantial rim. I'm still learning. A little bit of warping, I think I'm finding is okay. People don't care.
Oh, there's yeah.
When you get a tree in a pot, it doesn't matter, but it jumps out like a pimple on your nose. You know, like, no, it wasn't supposed to be like that. How can I do this so that it's not warping?
So tender and just obviously there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But
what shape do you want to make? What's the shape that's like out of your grasp right now that you'd like to make?
I'd like to make a lotus pot.
Ooh, that'd be beautiful to see what yours would look like.
Yeah. I don't know if that's going to happen before Chicago, because I know it's going to take some time.
The winter's coming.
Yeah, that's going to be definitely a winter project, and probably as soon as I get some of these commissions under control. I've got a couple of large suey bands that I have to make,
right?
And you know, some bigger stuff, and I have some pots that I have to make. See this contraption here? That's
I was wondering what that was.
My pot flipper. That's for big pots. I cannot flip.
Did you make that, or
no? Had somebody made it for me. Yeah.
Is there a name for it, or just the pot flipper?
The pot flipper.
Okay.
No.
Trademarked. I don't know.
Yeah. Actually, it was made by Roger Lehman, who makes the the wonderful stands.
I don't know
the bonsai stands.
Probably have seen them, but okay, yeah, I know.
Superfly sells.
Yep. I've seen those. Yeah.
He manufactures those. We were talking at the MABS show, and I guess he had designed the pot flipper that Ron Lang uses, because Ron was making some really, really big pots.
Right.
So anyway, we got to talking, and he tweaked the design, and he said, do you want me to make it? And I said, yeah, you know, we talked about price, and he said, he just wants pots.
Oh, wow.
So I said, well, you're going to have to wait a little while. I'm not going to, so I've got that, it's kind of hanging over my head, but he's okay with waiting. Right. But it works. And I added the foam on it so that it grips. Yeah.
That's an amazing invention. That's quite the engineering
feat
right there.
It's pretty awesome, yeah. And then Jim attached it to the wall for me. Yeah. But it helps. I can now make the biggest pots that will fit into my kiln without having to have my husband come down and help me flip them multiple times.
I was going to say, because that gets heavy. It's just big weight.
Yeah. I can handle a big pot before it has the slab on the bottom on it, but both pieces of clay weigh about the same, so instantly it doubles in weight, and I just don't have the strength. So this works good. It's smooth. It does what it's supposed to do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
With going back, you said you were in California. You started back up there again because you hurt your shoulder. Did you just get a wild hair? Just like, I want to start doing clay again. I want to start making pots.
No, it was pretty cool. There's a maker's space in the downtown Fresno area called Fresno Idea Works. And a friend of mine that I met, actually, we went to church together. and she took me to Idea Works and kind of got the tour. And I met one of the guys who started Fresno Idea Works. I don't know, in conversation came up that I think he probably asked me what I did, and he said, would you be interested in teaching ceramics to a group of high school kids?
Oh, wow. That's cool.
I was like, yeah, of course, I'd love to do that. So it just kind of fell into my lap, and it was the high school kids, it was a high-risk charter school. So these kids were coming back to get their diplomas, and at a small school. And so anyway, I got to teach ceramics. They had later invited me to teach art classes at the school. I had gotten a substitute, got my license to substitute teach. Yeah. So I was able to come in as a substitute teacher, and I had one of their teachers was a co-teacher. So I led the class, but they were the teacher. So that was kind of cool. And then during that time, I ended up going from the makerspace, and I joined a co-op and had my own studio space, and that's where I really
just took it, ran with it.
Yeah, it was cool.
Did you join any bonsai societies in California?
Yeah. And the Fresno Bonsai Society, it's a really good club.
Yeah.
They were really, really welcoming. I had the great opportunity to see Ryan Neal, I think 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
He used to go there on a regular basis to work on the Clark Bonsai collection.
Right. Being that he went to school in there, around that area. Well, not around the area, but within California, so he met a lot of people too. I know. Yeah. You've never been to Oregon, have you?
No, I haven't. I'd like to go someday.
Michael Hagedorn's out there. All the
I know.
all the people. Yeah. If you ever get out there, let me know. You got a place to stay.
All right. Cool.
But with the teaching kids and everything, do you see yourself being someday taking on an apprentice or teaching more, or like going to clubs and teaching?
I would travel to go to clubs.
Yeah.
I think that would be an interesting thing to do. It would be fun to share what I've learned, and especially I like to make kusamono pots. So that's a whole different animal.
Right.
I get to have, it's kind of fun and very lighthearted making kusamono pots.
My experience being not very much within pot making, I know there's distinguishing factors that are kusamono, not kusamono. What is it different? Why is it different? I've never heard of anyone talk about it that way.
Okay. Well, kusamono, I think that there's a little bit less of a need for a traditional pot with kusamono.
Okay.
So, what would be a good way to compare? Bonsai pots, it's like the classic car, and kusamono is like a dune buggy.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that's a good
sure.
good thing.
Yeah.
Have fun with it and be expressive, a little bit more lighthearted, but well made. Young loves my kusamono pots.
Oh, I do too. I've got so many of them now.
Oh, that's right, you do. But how are those?
They're doing great. They're doing great. Thriving, loving their little pots.
But they're fun. They're a little bit quicker to make, and I've done a lot of carving, making my own stamps. So I get to play with texture.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit more lighthearted.
Do you feel that's almost, I don't want to say breeding ground, but an outlet for you to experiment outside of the traditional realm that you're still following and be able to find your own?
Sometimes I need to just get away from it and just, not that making bonsai pots isn't fun,
right?
But it's a happy experience to make kusamono pots. I don't know, it's just fun.
It's like freewheeling Bob Dylan, right?
right. No, they're fun. It's just a whole different mindset. I still use the same techniques, as far as making a good quality pot. They're well constructed. They've got drainage holes.
Right.
They're put together well.
Yeah.
But it's a different thing. Just a different animal.
Yeah,
and I don't feel like one's any less than the other.
Right. It's just application, right? That's really, thank you for that, explanation, because I've wondered, I'm like, is there a difference? I don't know, because I don't make those pots. I hope to someday, just for fun, throw some clay. With clubs, as you've been to clubs now, right? mainly Ohio or around outside the outer belt, or
just Columbus and Cleveland really. Okay. And then I was in a couple of clubs in Florida and Fresno Bonsai Society when I was in California.
Doing pottery at the time, or just only Ohio for doing
only Ohio, since I've really been diving into making bonsai pots. But I've been associated,
right.
And was making pots
right.
with the other clubs, yeah.
But not like you are now. But in the sense of having it be, all these clubs are bonsai related. Mm-hmm. But now you're doing pots full time within Ohio and having those, Columbus to Cleveland club. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Cincinnati is doing anything, but you had Florida over here, California that way. What are some things you think about, or would you say, as far as clubs and ideas of pottery and around it that we get wrong? In the idea of like educational or understanding. Does that make sense?
Well, I think that I get what you're saying. I think that I'd like to see people put emphasis on good pots. I mean, I understand that when you're training a tree, you don't want to put it in a good pot. Right. But I think that it would be good, and that's something where I've thought about. I started writing an article about how to choose pots for trees and some of the things to consider, and there again, those rules are made to be broken eventually. Right. But I think clubs could put some more focus on pot selection. I don't know if that answers.
Definitely, no, yeah. Just in the idea of like, you had it to where now people are coming to you for pottery. Mm-hmm. And before you were making it as a fun thing. Not that it's not fun now, but it was a thing where
it was more of a hobby.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you had this other idea of doing trees more probably than you are now because you're busy.
I don't have I have some, and what I have I've got just kind of a mishmash of things. Yeah.
Right. And being your time is taken care of too. With those, clubs outside of Ohio, and with, as you answered that perfectly, was just wondering if there's like any takeaway that you got that you wish at the time you could have known more, because you were making bonsai pots, but do you feel like you know more now because of your time spent here and people you've met, or is it just an amalgamation?
Well, yeah, people I've met. I mean, Rob, we chat, and he's really been helpful and encouraging, and it really helps to talk to somebody who knows, and not only knows what they like, but can talk about it and articulate why.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they have good taste, but I don't know if they're always sure why.
Right.
That you can. So some people are just innate. They're just good at teaching because they can talk about what it is that they know.
Yeah, I think Rob definitely fell into that shoe.
Yeah, he's definitely a good teacher.
I would say so. Where are some places you want to go next? Where do you want to? What clubs do you want to see? What shows do you want to go to outside of the ones you already been to?
Yeah, so Chicago's next. I don't know if they're going to be doing a Shohin convention.
I've been hearing talk back and forth. I don't know for sure either.
If you hear that they're going to, I thought that I had heard that Bill was not going to do the Shohin convention in Kannapolis.
Right.
But I think that would be, I'd really like to, I like small things. I've always liked small things. So I could see spending a good amount of time just making Shohin containers and being able to go to a Shohin show. I've been to the Shohin convention in California.
Okay.
And that's a really good show.
Do you think there's a less of a quantity of Shohin pots around in the bonsai culture?
I've been told that it would be great if there were more.
Okay.
Yeah.
That answers that. Yeah. I was just listening to Andrew Robson's professional, mainly deciduous focus, but Michael Hagedorn's apprentice from a couple years back.
Okay. Yeah.
He just had an episode on his podcast about Shohin with a guy named John Romano, I believe, in the East Coast. And they were discussing Shohin.
To listen to that.
It was really good. Yeah, I just listened to it yesterday, and it was really good. And it got me thinking about Shohin and the idea of there's not a lot. It's all.
No, and I don't know. I think Shohin, small bonsai is just extra special. They're just like jewels.
And it's really hard.
Yeah. Not just the horticulture aspect of it.
Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, I can't tell you how many little, I love accent plants, and I can't tell you how many, you miss a watering, it's like, gone.
Exactly. It's like, oh.
And even something that I put purposely like on my windowsill in my kitchen, just a little type of fern that I had.
Yeah.
And it's like, I forgot to water it, and it's like dead. I watered it right away, and it looks like it might gonna come back. Yeah. But it doesn't take much.
Right, and that's the thing
and
too.
And so Shohin is just...
I did a podcast with Chase Rosade up in his place.
I'm going to be listening to that.
Well, I appreciate that.
I apologize for
not putting that out there like, yeah, let's do it. But it was in the idea of having his experience, and I didn't know he started out with small trees.
He did.
Yeah, and he's like, I always started out with small trees. Like, really? He's like, yeah, and then I think he said it was John Knock. I was like, you need bigger trees. He's like, okay, John. Okay. And then, fortitude that way is just fell into place. But he's like, yeah, let's still go with smaller trees. We need more.
I agree. I think it the big trees are impressive, but I think that the little Shohin displays are equally as impressive.
Like Mark Field's displays.
Oh my gosh.
Those are.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's amazing. I had an opportunity he commissioned me to do a pot, and then he sold the trees, and it might be getting sold.
Right.
And he did, so anyway, that got me inspired to go ahead and work on it. So that's my next shape, is to make it like a bag style pot as an oval. So that's, it has
really
that nice
cool
shape. Yeah, it was for a root over rock trident that he had that was in the Michigan show.
I've never seen that one, but it'd be cool to see that.
I guess he sold it recently.
Gotta make money. I get it.
Absolutely.
With who is somebody you'd want to work with? Would you ever do a pairing? Like, would you ever do like a
as a matter of fact,
artist to artist?
Have you heard of Steve Zebarth?
I have not.
He's in the Cleveland Club. He's actually an art teacher at Baldwin Wallace, and he makes beautiful pots. He typically puts a little relief sculpture of a crab on his pots, and I'm sure you've.
I think I've seen those because the crabs are very distinct, right?
Yeah. But I'd like to do a piece with him. We talked about it the last meeting that I was able to go to. So at some point we'll do it. I think it's just it's time.
Right.
Just finding the time to do something like that.
There's always a winter.
Well, I think a lot's going to happen this winter, but then I'll be busy getting ready for the next round of shows. But
right. Do you see yourself kind of slowing down on the shows coming in the future?
I think I'm going to have to.
Right.
They're a lot of work.
Yeah. Because you're driving everywhere, right? You're not flying in and having it shipped or anything.
No.
That's a lot of gas,
fortunately, my daughter lives in New York, so that makes it a little bit easier.
Definitely.
But yeah, I'd love to be able to go to do a show in California, but the logistics of that, because I got to know people out there, and they were so encouraging and supportive to have a bonsai potter in their midst, and that was great. So I really appreciate that group of people out there.
You got Bob Bressel out there with his nursery and stuff and everything with that.
I actually met Bob for the first time in New York at the National Convention.
Same for me.
Yeah.
I was like, you're Bob Bressel. Yes, I am. Who are you?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a gem of a person as well. He's very honest and just tells you sincerely things.
there's a bunch, in California, of course, that's just the wellspring for bonsai.
I kick myself. I was born in Oregon, lived there majority of my life until the last 4 years or so. I didn't venture down there often enough to just drink from the well.
Yeah, right. I know. It's a great area, and even in the Central Valley, Fresno, where I lived, and it gets hot. There's some great bonsai in the Central Valley of California. The club that I was involved with, Fresno has the Shinzen Garden, and they have the Clark Bonsai Collection there. So they have some amazing trees.
Right.
And, Ryan comes and they get people. So there's always just this inflowing of really talented bonsai teachers that come there.
Yeah, that's just
and 2 days a week, the people from the club would just come to the garden and they just work on trees. I mean, when I didn't have anything going on, I could go twice a week and just...
That's an amazing experience too.
Yeah,
it makes you better at the craft because you're working on trees that are very well established.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
So it was pretty special.
What's your favorite tree? Or
I love larches.
Ah.
Really love larches, and I like boxwoods.
Okay, like Kingsville. What kind of?
I have like 3 little Kingsville, and we dug up some just landscape boxwoods that have some pretty big caliper trunks. Maybe 3-inch trunks, and they're just sitting. I didn't even put them into good bonsai soil. They're just
those things will grow
dirt.
Anything.
Yeah, so those are going to get worked on, and I have an amber maple. That I finally got it put into, pumice and volcanic.
Do you use your own pots, or do you get other people's pots when you've had them from the past and use those? I
have like 2 trees in my pots, but I don't have anything really special,
right?
Right. But yeah, I have a little larch that I actually got from Ken Huth.
Nice.
And it's going to go into a pot of mine next year.
Very
so
cool.
I have to figure out what I'm going to make for it.
Extra special little.
Which is kind of exciting to. It's probably going to go in, I don't know, non-bond, which are fun to make. They're hard.
Oh yeah.
Non-bonds are really hard to make. Yeah. Yeah. But
with your time, as you put in throughout the times you've gone in, I won't say in and out, but blowing down the river of life,
mm-hmm.
right? You take a stop here, you take a stop there. What do you think always led you back to clay?
Well, it's just where I'm supposed to be.
For sure.
I just love, I love gardening. I love having my hands in clay, 3-dimensional stuff.
Like you're saying,
it's just, it was like coming home when I finally got back to clay after being away from it for 15 years. Wow,
that's a good amount of time away too.
Yeah, it was a long time.
I remember you told me, because you did everything else, and then the shoulder injury. Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah.
I was still blown away by 15 years, and it just goes back like more than riding a bicycle. It's riding a motorcycle now.
It felt so good. There were things that I had to kind of I had to call up from my memory. I had to, the finger memory, but now it's just an extension of who you are.
Definitely.
It feels good. And I really believe that time away from something that you've been very dedicated to, there's a lot of learning that happens.
Right.
When you're not doing what it is that you've been doing. There's a big growth period.
And just from those experiences too, right? Because it reflects back in your work later on.
Yeah. You just, I don't know, you're not labored with having that, constantly doing it. I don't know. And maybe you're looking differently. You're paying attention to things.
The experience in the eyes of life.
Yeah. But then to get back with it, maybe there's just an excitement when you've been away from something for a while. You just have a fresh desire to do something again.
Nice. But, that's really that's nice to hear. Because we've all been in places where, I feel like bad because I'm not doing what I want to do with that, but I can't. I'm learning now. I've had all this time before my daughter was born, where I was doing tree styling and things and just getting the basics going for initial development and somewhere in refinement. And now I'm like, okay, it's not sidelined. It's just a different approach now to where daughter's here. This is still there, but
something's on hold.
Exactly.
It's on hold, but you're gonna realize that during that hold period, you're gonna learn.
Yeah, I mean, what I do
and
now,
if you can embrace it, if you can get over the level of frustration that you can't do what you really, really love to do.
I went to after I was leaving from Chase's place because I helped him up there with repotting some trees, like I said when we did the podcast and stuff, and I was very honored that he trusted me enough to do that because it's like,
great.
Wow, in his space.
That kind of stuff is so exciting.
It makes me happy to think
just
still.
Like things rise up inside of you when somebody trusts you.
Yeah, and I stopped by Jim Doyle's nursery on the way out, Harrisburg, because it was all on the way home, and I approached Jim. I was like, "Hey, you want to do a podcast?" And I'm also here to get a tree because initially I wanted to get a tree, and I'm calling it Junie or Juniper, but he didn't have a small juniper, so I got a little spruce, so I call it Junie or Junebug.
Cool.
Because I'm like, that's kind of oxymoronic. Hey, Juniper, wait, put the spruce. But, the intention with that is to, as she grows, style the tree as it grows. You know what I mean?
I think that's great.
And, I would love
to... That's like planting a tree,
Exactly, really in that process.
Yeah.
And that's where I thought of it, too, but in the application, you can hold it. you can sit underneath the one in the yard, but
Mm-hmm.
think about how much land people have to use anymore, right?
Right.
And the same for a pot. Like I said, I asked you, I think a couple months ago, I was looking at my schedule for the next 2 years of school, planning out my life.
Mm-hmm.
And ideally, I'd love to create a pot that can be built upon. Does that make sense? As far as like having initial structure and then possibly doing something to add on to it. Not think of joinery with woodworking in the sense of that. I don't know if that's a possibility, but it's a far-fetched idea. But
the challenge right off the bat is that with wood, it's a stable material for the most part, and clay, it shrinks. So you'd almost have to make all the pieces and put them together for the future, and then disassemble, deconstruct it, and then make it so that it can grow. Just because of the way clay shrinks, it would be really hard. But I don't know. You might come up with.
I'm no engineer like the table or the pot turner, but
yeah. I don't know. That would be an interesting thing to think about. You could do it from just think about the sketches and how how these pieces might go together. But then, like I said, you'd have to construct it, I think, all at once.
Right, in that organic form, because that's how I approach most of my life. Is just how does it start out, and how do I want to see it at the end? But you never have a finalized form, right? Because with your pots, do you vision it at the end, or do you just see how the process goes? And
I'll do sketches. I have pieces of paper all over the place.
Nice.
Like I have a
paper
up there. Yeah. Those are sketches. I've opened up some books and I was like, oh, there, a drawing of a pot falls out, and it's fun to go back and look at those from 20 and 30 years ago, and to see that the things that I like have not changed a whole lot.
It's got more refined, would you say?
Maybe, yeah. There's maybe a little bit of sophistication, but it's like when I was painting, the painters that I liked then, I'll look back on them now, or I did look back on them, and I go, oh, I like painters that are a lot better than that person was. So your taste refines, and I think that same thing has happened with my pots. That the pots that I used to like, my eye is on something, more advanced, I guess. Yeah. But so I'm looking at, and I'm really bad with names, and I've got to improve that. But there are Japanese potters that when I see their work, I'm like, yep, that's who made that pot.
It's like, oh, their little flair.
What's his Owen?
Rich.
Yeah. He.
Sorry for the
we talked a little bit at the national convention.
Oh, I met him there. It was great.
Yeah, and he came over and he was saying, he said he was kind of likening some of my pots to Peter Krebs.
Oh wow.
And that was really cool. And he even talked to me about because Peter writes like a little poem on the bottoms of his pots.
Oh, that's amazing.
But they're in German, so
okay.
The average person isn't going to know.
Google
That was
Translate.
really cool. So there's all kinds of little things that I think that I could start to implement that would just elevate the work that I'm doing to a higher and higher level. So that's my desire, is just to keep finding ways to just improve and just keep making more and more quality pots, and eventually, I can look back on some of the first cloudfoot pots that I made. I was like, boy, I'm not doing that anymore. It seems like it's better.
Right.
But that's the goal. That should always be the goal. Yeah. Craftsmanship. I mean, I think so much in society today, it's like I don't think people even know what craftsmanship is.
Well,
it's unfortunate.
It's almost lost.
In general, in general. I'm not talking about certain people, but in general.
It's the
not
cultural
admired.
norm is, because everything seems to have gone in the way of, as I heard you state earlier, instant gratification, and the idea of the process and time put in. Yep. And that's the thing too, is also a big discussion in my household with the idea of the Japanese culture, in that idea of where it's one thing their whole life. And as I've done blue collar work in many different facets, even now I'm landscaping and design work with that, and bonsai, and as we're talking now too with the podcast, all these things, it still comes into a realization for me that it does make sense to just focus on one thing and be really, really good at it.
Yeah.
But being American, it's hard for my brain to comprehend.
It's hard. It's hard because there's things that you can learn from having dabbled in all different kinds of things. I mean, I look back at all the stuff that I've done and was like, wow, I have done a lot. You know? Like, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Well, I think there's something to be said for both.
For sure.
Both sides of that.
Yeah, and that's what makes us human as we are in our culture, right?
Yeah.
And I always think about at the end of the day, now that I have a daughter, it was before I had a daughter, like, oh, what do I want to be remembered for? And the idea of not being a pompous person, but like, do I want to be remembered for being this kind of person at this time?
Yeah, what kind of an impact have you had?
Exactly.
How are you going to better
and like, especially
this
even with
younger
my art,
generation
and the application, like you were saying, I always generally ask this question to anyone in the art, bonsai or whatever they're doing in any art form. With your art specifically, what is something that you want people to take away from your art and or remember you for?
Craftsmanship.
Okay.
And that I care.
Yeah.
And good design.
Yeah.
I'm not always going to be successful, but I think I really I want to be known as a good craftsman. Because I think if you're a creative person, you're going to make creative things, but if you don't know how to make them right, then you're going to have this really creative thing, but it doesn't have everything that it needs to have.
Right, because you don't have the training, right?
Yeah.
As far as time put in, as you said.
Yeah. It is. It's time. And that's, that's I think that's the ethic, ethos, or whatever of Japanese culture.
Definitely.
Spend the time.
Yeah.
Put time into it.
Commitment.
Learn. Yeah.
Look at Kimura.
Right.
It was like, wow, that guy, his whole life, literally every day.
Yep.
That's amazing. Where you're at now, like we talked about, your I'll say popularity is getting more. Mm-hmm. How much more popular do you want to get?
Well, popularity is kind of an unusual thing,
right?
Because I'm not used to being popular.
Right.
Being in sort of the limelight, I don't know how much it suits me. I like talking. I mean, I like people.
For sure, yeah.
And but I think there's a lot of demand that goes along with that.
Yeah.
And I'm not a real good business person, so I think I'm a little bit nervous about what that looks like.
Right.
But I like the idea of selling my pots for a little bit closer to what they're worth.
Right, and your time.
And my time. It's good to know that the time that I put into something, I'm going to see a little bit more of a reward for that.
Do you remember, not off topic, but in the realm of bonsai pottery, I just thought of an idea, and I thought, do you remember your first bonsai pot you ever saw?
That I ever saw?
Yeah.
No, probably. The first memory of a bonsai pot, and it wasn't really a bonsai pot, was when I was probably about 12 years old. Our family was good friends with the director of the Zanesville Art Museum.
Okay.
And he was also interested in bonsai, and
oh, wow.
And not to any,
right.
He did not do bonsai, but he had a juniper that he had started, and he ended up giving it to me. And he had this little, I wish I still had the pot. I don't know what happened to it, but it was actually a copper pot.
Wow,
copper.
That's cool.
It was like a bag shape.
Yeah.
It was a pretty little pot. And that's like the first thing that I remember, just the aesthetic of that shape. Like I said, it was not a bonsai pot. But it was just a pretty. It was just.
Wow.
And he was just a wonderful individual. Yeah, he had a profound influence on the art and all of that.
Definitely. Yeah, I will say, as myself and your husband were talking upstairs about cultural things of Ohio being different parts. I've realized like the north area is a little different than the middle. Yeah. South is definitely different than all the other two.
Right.
I've had a whole spread of the sandwich.
Yeah, you have.
I really feel there's this inertia coming on, this energy of bonsai here due to Rob, Dan, the club's getting more? Do you feel that as well, as far as more people getting involved?
Things are they're elevating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that with Dan White being good at the IT stuff and promoting
Definitely.
the shows in Cleveland, they're getting really good attendance. The club, they get a lot more people. I haven't been able to go to a whole lot of meetings recently, but there are a lot of people that come to the meetings.
I've been meaning to get up to one. It's just conflicting with schedule, as you know.
Well, maybe, yeah. There's one tomorrow. Are you going back to Columbus?
Tomorrow, yeah. I'm busy with work.
Okay.
7 days a week working now.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Not tomorrow. I'm sorry, Saturday.
But yeah. Did you guys just had the Cleveland Bonsai Show, right? Did you?
Yeah, I didn't go. We had some
okay.
family commitments.
Oh, I understand.
So I
okay.
didn't,
I know if you
I
went.
didn't get to go.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I heard it was a good show.
Yeah.
I missed that one.
Yes.
It's because family stuff,
Right,
which is
right.
first.
Yeah.
First
Well,
thing.
Father's Day.
Yeah, I was like,
a big
first
part of it. Yeah.
That was an experience. That was fun. Where can people find you? Do you have an Instagram?
I have a website, and I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook. So it's April Grigsby Ceramics.
.com or
.com for my website,
Okay.
and then April Grigsby Ceramics on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
And you're located in?
I am in a little town called Westfield Center. It's about, I guess, 45, 50 minutes south of Cleveland, off of I-71. At the we're just a little bit west of the interchange, the 224 I-76 I-71 cross. It's the Lodi truck stop.
Yep.
So we're
The
not,
oldest settlement.
yeah, we're not far away from that, and we're actually, our address is Seville. That's where our postal we get, but we're in the little town of Westfield Center, and that's where Westfield Insurance is.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. It's
Well,
just a
April.
little, yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. This was great. Thank
and
you. It
let's
was
hope
really fun
more
talking.
people with podcasts reach out to you.
That would be great.
I think they will.
And if people give me some warning,
right. I hope we gave you enough.
Yeah, I people are welcome to come by. We just have to set something up, for the future.
Thank you. I
Well,
appreciate
thanks,
it.
Ryan. Ryan, I almost called you Ryan.
It happens all the time.
Kevin.
No problem.
Cool.
Yeah. Keep on doing what you're doing.
Thanks.
No problem.
I love it.
Today's episode has been recorded, produced, and edited by Kevin Faris and Ryan Houston. Our music was provided by MIDI Cancer. To find more music from MIDI Cancer, check out their SoundCloud and Bandcamp pages. To find more information on the podcast, please check out our Instagram page, Bonsai Time Podcast, and our website, bonsaitimepodcast.com. To stay in touch with us, Kevin's Instagram is Kevin_Faris, PNW, and Ryan's website is right2tree2.com. You can find these links in the description below. Thank you for listening, and bonsai on!